Welcome to the Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 333 of East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. Tonight, our featured guest is Mr. Clint Weaver. Clint is running for Henry County Council at large this year, but we're going to be talking to Clint about a lot of things tonight. We're going to be doing a little bio about Clint, getting to know him. He is new on the ballot, a first-time candidate, so we're going to talk what it's like to sign up, what it's like to run, what that whole process is, and kind of get his opinion on it. And then we also have a story where Henry County has a new protected wetland area called the Buck Creek Fen Preserve. So if you want to know what that's about, make sure you stick around until the end of the show. This show is about our lives in rural Henry County. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, sometimes we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you always learn something new. Zach, do you want to go ahead and promote our Patreon for us? We just had a great episode, I think.
Yeah, we had a nice long chat with the Patreon about Dakota's first world problems, and then we got some insider information on the explosions a couple weeks ago that we talked about last week because that was in our guest's neighborhood. But they're the ones. It's nice and toasty in here, even though the weather's been great this week. It's toasty in here. And notice it's because the Patreon folks pay the bills. And if you donate any amount, you get access to the Patreon feed. You get to see the show notes that have links to any of the things that we talk about. And if you donate $50 or more a month, you get named. You get your name dropped in the beginning of the show. And so we have Christy Avery, who's our favorite Norwex dealer. Jonathan Phillips, who is also running for office and is the favorite sales guy of the hosts here at Andy Moore Buick GMC. And then we have Anthony Meyer, who is always creating memes and running product all over the country with his 18-wheeler. And then introducing, we have a new sponsor who's sponsoring as a business, Sports Corner, who, for anybody that's been a Newcastle resident, that's been a business that's been around for as long as I can remember. And they're under new ownership, under the Reese family, and they have jumped on and supported the show to sponsor us, and we're going to have them on in a couple of weeks to talk about their new adventure.
Yep, we are. Really appreciate them. A few weeks ago, I made the joke where Christy Avery, John Phillips, and Anthony Meyer, they've been in the $50 a month club for so long, I was starting to get worried about it. And now, apparently, that's all I had to say, and Sports Corner just jumped right on in there. So,
yeah, I know we've been talking with Blake, the owner, with one of the owners of I think they waited until last week when they officially announced their ownership of the business, and so they jumped on when that became public.
All right, and if you want some merchandise, T-shirts, whatever, hoodies, all that fun stuff, just send us an email, or you can send a voicemail to us on the website bosshogofliberty.com, which is officially fixed, by the way, Zach. I don't know if you.
I have not tried it, but yes, thank you, dear leader.
Yeah, we've got
Chris Spangle for fixing the website. You had to kind of go a roundabout way to get to it the last couple.
Had some messages. There were some issues with the security settings, and so whenever you tried to go to the website, it said that your information was under attack. We were not attacking anyone's information, I promise.
I do love when I get that message from a website that is obviously not doing that. Like I don't have one off the top of my head besides like Boss Hog, but like you'll go to a website and you're like, no, they're not. Like these people are not trying to steal. I'm like, but your browser like will not let you go to this website.
I've seen that before and never knew what it was, and now I know what it is. Oh. It's the security settings on the host site, so that's what it is. But anyway, Clint, let's get to know you a little bit here on the top of the show.
Sure.
Just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up, the bio, that kind of thing.
My name's Clint Weaver. Grew up in Henry County. Grew up in Newcastle. Graduated Newcastle '99. College, bounced around a little bit. A few different schools. Finally finished up at Ball State, and then worked in steel mill for a few years right out of college. Ingersoll, as most local older folks know it as. It's now currently Newcastle Stainless Plate.
Yep.
Got laid off from there along with 20 other guys or so. I believe that was 09-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. Went back to school for a little while. I did heating and air for a while. I was a freight conductor for Norfolk Southern for a little over a year or so.
So you were an actual freight conductor? You were driving the trains?
That would be the engineer.
Oh, okay.
So I was the conductor.
What's the conductor do?
So the conductor tells the engineer what to do. So he's the one with his hands on the controls, but they're typically the ones if you see a train at an intersection or somebody that's flagging traffic or actually directing trains on the ground, that'd be the conductor. They're the guys that are hanging on the back of the train if they're making backward movements or if they're in a yard switching and putting different combinations of cars together to actually take to different customers.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it was interesting. Really a pretty good job, but difficult lifestyle. On call, 24/7, literally. No schedule. They'd call you, and you had an hour and a half to get to work. And if you didn't go, they'd either count against you or you didn't earn a paycheck. So
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, it was. I was with my wife at the time. We didn't have any kids, and being laid off, I was exploring different jobs and trying to figure out where I was going to land full time. And benefits were good, and it paid well. But I learned pretty quick it wasn't any way I didn't want to raise a family with that kind of lifestyle. So started looking around a little bit and sitting on the couch with the wife one evening, and she says, "Hey, state police is hiring. You interested?" And so my bachelor's degree was criminal justice at Ball State, so I'd had some interest in law enforcement, but I never really saw myself getting into law enforcement, at least right out of college. I wasn't really where I wanted to be. But long story short, I applied and got invited to the 67th Academy, and me and 78 other guys started the academy, and gosh, that would have been 2012. And so I was a trooper about 3 years. Worked out of the Pendleton post, worked with a lot of great guys. But again, the shift, it was an afternoon shift where I was at, and with the way that the seniority worked, and wasn't a good fit either. I saw the kind of the writing on the wall that that lifestyle and working afternoons would also be difficult.
Yeah.
By that point, we had our first daughter, Molly, and only daughter. But so I left that and got a job with Duke Energy, and now I'm still with them, been a lineman going on be 8 years next month. So that's kind of how I landed here. But lived in Newcastle all my life, raising my family here. Got 2 kids. Molly's 9, Harvey's 5, and my wife Dana. We both work here and part of the community, and just it's our home.
You can't escape the call out life. It sounds like.
No, but now I have a choice.
Yeah. Somewhat of a choice.
Correct. Yeah, it's it's a lot different. I actually had a call out tonight, and I almost didn't take it because I thought, well, maybe I won't make the podcast if I took the call, but turned out it was something fast. So
There we go.
Yeah,
We like those ones. We like the
yeah, I
fast
know.
ones.
I felt real bad if I'd missed it and had to cancel on you, but
Did your brother work for the railroad too for a while?
Cliff did.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember him telling us how that worked,
Yeah.
and it sounded kind of like insane. That
It-
just you just be whatever time, get a call, you need to be here at this time, or else kind of thing. And it was just like any moment, any time. You don't know where you're going. It was like just sounded kind of crazy.
And and they'll tell you that in the beginning that's kind of what to expect,
is.
and that's really the worst case scenario. But after you get in there, you realize like there's an app on your phone. You see the different trains that are going to get called. You kind of understand the schedule. There's a list. So I was on the conductor board, and there might have been 8 of us on the conductor board. Well, I knew that there's only going to be 3 trains called in the next 24 hours. Well, they got to go through that list and call the guys ahead of me. So you with some experience,
you can plan a little bit.
you can
know
plan a
what's
little
going on.
bit. So I mean, it's still not great. Don't get me wrong, but you did sort of get an opportunity to sort of schedule yourself a little bit and know when to expect that phone call.
It's pretty stressful, like the whole on call system. Like, I mean, I know that you do it now with being a lineman and being on watch, and I've done it with voluntarily signing up on pager duty,
Right.
and just, hey, do you want to go out to eat? And you're like, it's got to stay in Newcastle,
Right.
you know, we got to stay here,
Yep.
and everybody else is getting margaritas, you
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah. And that's where it's my wife. You know what I mean? And whenever
Yeah.
we're on call for our watch week, you know, or even state police. I was on call some with them. We did the meth suppression, and you know we'd get called out. 10, 12 years ago, the meth labs were kind of a big deal. They were popping up all over. People would find them. You know, you had a lot of people in the back lot. Making it. They were smurfing the ephedrine and making it. But so we'd get called out for that. And they kind of expect you to be there. But now though it's totally it's all on the wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's whenever you get that phone call, or like you said, I can't be counted on for picking the kids up. I can't get them to practice. Get them from the sitter. It's it's stressful. But
Yeah, but also like it's also not as bad as what it can be. Like some days it's way worse than others,
Right.
but other times it's like, it's not that bad, and it's a pretty cool job. Like, I don't necessarily do your job, but in what I do, I'm in the moment. It's kind of like, this sucks, whatever. It's annoying, but then like if you take a step back, it's like, I have a pretty cool job. Like
Yeah.
what I do is pretty freaking sweet. You know?
I agree. Yeah, to me, it's rewarding. I'm kind of the hands-on kind of guy. I like to step back at the end of the day and see my work, and there's definitely a sense of satisfaction for getting the lights back on, or it's a service everybody expects, and it's it is. It's
Yeah.
definitely rewarding.
The rewarding part definitely, like for me, it's hitting the switch and then seeing the neighborhood lights come on around me.
Right.
Like,
People waving
Nice.
at you.
I was going to
saying
say, do you
things.
guys actually get to do that? Are you usually in a
That-
position
yeah.
where like you can actually see the lights come on?
yeah,
Or
that's
what-
me. Yeah, usually. Yeah,
Because you cut the power so he can do his job.
sometimes.
Sometimes.
Not a lot. Not actually necessarily Clint. I'm cutting the power for the Highline crew, not usually Clint.
Yeah, or
Clint is
if
Clint's
you're
the type of lineman that goes up in gloves and sleeves and can hold 12,000 volts of electricity in his hand to do his work.
whenever we get to put the lights on, it's usually like a dozen because we're on the end of a stick. And when Dakota gets to flip the breaker, then he's energizing.
We mentioned on the show, but a couple years ago we had the ice storm, and I really almost told Dakota to stop because he was telling us how many of these switches were going down, and he's like, "Yep, we're down to this
breakers.
many. We're down to this many." He's like, "And when we're down to this, power's out." And we're like, "For how long?" He's like, "That's a great question." He's like, "It will be a while."
Right.
And we're like,
It
"This
was,
isn't good." And so he was just giving us like the hour by hour. He's like, "Well, lost another one," and we're like, "I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I like to live my life in oblivion,
Yeah,
or just
I know.
oblivious to what's going on around me." And Dakota's ruining that right now because I'm like, I'm sitting there with my family. I need I need to have a setup for my generators for my camper to run my house because I think they could honestly at least run the furnace because it's gas. But I'm like, but I knew exactly how dire the situation was because I think we were down to like one.
Yeah.
There was like one extra. I was like, oh gosh, this is not good. So yeah. There was a power outage in Newcastle like yesterday.
That was planned. That was a planned outage.
It was a planned outage.
That was me too. That was. Yep.
Shutting people's power off.
No, I wasn't doing that part. I was getting it ready for them to shut the power off, though. But
Yeah. So yeah, and
Yeah.
people appreciate when those get turned back on.
Yeah, doing a lot of upgrades. So
we are, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
actually a lot of upgrades happening right now, which is, it's incredible. Really, the amount of work that's happening in this area right now in the city of Newcastle, it is mind blowing.
it's
What's
Yeah.
going on, like
Yeah.
just from behind the scenes, and it's really good, and people should really be happy about it. But it's a very niche thing. No one's really gonna know, obviously.
right. When you
They're-
do our jobs the right way, nobody knows that we did anything.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, their lights were on before. Their lights are on now. Right.
Mhm. Right. Yep.
But Anyway, let's move on from
Yep.
the inside baseball. So we have worked together for 7 years, right?
Yep.
Approximately.
Yep.
Consequently, I think that this podcast has been going on for its 8th year now. So, I noticed you started you talking to me about politics, local politics.
Right.
I don't really pay attention much to national level stuff, but we started talking about it a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When did you really start getting interested in it?
So, kind of a funny story, or I guess the real root of it came about as pretty natural, actually. I was in college, probably 2002-ish. Had a summer job. I worked out at Summit Lake. I was just a groundskeeper, laborer kind of guy. And all their little trucks they had out there were little S10s with nothing but an AM radio. So they'd send us out in pairs, and we'd pick up trash or paint or, whatever jobs they had for us summer guys. And so had a radio, turned it on, listened to whatever we could. This is well before, cell phones or anything like that. And might have had a flip phone, but nothing that you could stream, obviously. And so I listened to 1190 WOBO out of Fort Wayne. That was the only really strong AM signal I could get. So in the mornings, I'd listen to Dr. Laura, and in the afternoon, Paul Harvey at noon, and then Rush Limbaugh in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And my day was over at 2 or 3, so I listened to 6 or 7 hours of talk radio for the most part, and I never even heard Rush Limbaugh's name prior to that. And I started listening to him. My parents weren't politically inclined one way or the other for the most part. I mean, I grew up in a very normal middle-class family, and my parents voted, but it was never a really strong one way or the other. But listening to Rush, I'm like, wow, my gosh, this guy makes a lot of sense. I really, agree with a lot of what he was saying, and so that was an early 19-year-old me realizing, wow, there's something to this. And the more I learned, the more I understood, because I understand the players and starting to understand the nuances of national politics anyway. And then that in turn, you start to have a little more interest in local politics. As far as local politics, and so that's kind of continued. I've never really let that go. I mean, I've always probably pay more attention than I really should sometimes to some of the national stuff, because a lot of times you feel pretty defeated because you really feel like nothing ever changes, and a lot of the,
That's why I don't really pay attention anymore.
Right, exactly. I mean, and a lot of it, if you really get deep into it, it feels pretty heavy. You almost carry around a load of dread. But as far as local stuff, it just sort of snowballed into that where, my mom still gets the Courier Times. And so I get her hand-me-down papers and start paying attention, start reading a little bit. And again, you start paying attention to who your local offices are and who's holding them. Probably the first time that really hit me about local was we were trying to buy a piece of property in the neighborhood we were talking about earlier. And we wanted to maybe build a house on it. And it had been in the family for some time, but we were looking to purchase it. And we found out that we didn't have enough road frontage to build a home. It was a few acres, plenty enough ground to do so, but there's a county code that required at least 150 foot of road frontage to have a residence. Well, this particular piece of property actually had a county road that ran right into it. It was only 75 feet instead of the required 150. So I had to go to the county planning commission, I believe it was, and more or less state my case that, hey, this is who I am. I'm standing up there in front of these people and felt pretty nervous, but had to plead my case as to why I thought I should get this variance to potentially build on there. And I got the outcome I was looking for. I explained to my case. I'm like, well, the only reason for that footage, which I found out, was for public safety. So you have access to utilities and things like that, all of which was available because of the road and the way it was built there. But so they passed it, and we got the ordinance, and then things changed. We ended up doing something different anyway. But So then I realized, I was like, wow, these elected officials, or appointed officials, I don't remember the case, could have basically just told me no. This something that I'm going to potentially do, and how my family's going to raise my kids here. If they would have just said, "Yeah, I don't really think that sounds like a good idea because we have this ordinance here," then all of a sudden,
they could say no and be well within their rights, and you
right,
could do
right,
nothing.
absolutely, and it's well within. There's a reason why, and I understood that, and it just realized that the local politics do matter, and
Right.
Whenever they touch you and your families, or there's restrictions or regulations that you feel personally, it's us local individuals that have an opportunity to impact that.
Yeah, and you can actually make a difference here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where my local interest, really kind of started, and that sort of, like I said, sort of snowballed into just trying to pay a little more attention. And I feel like it's just being a responsible citizen to understand what's going on.
So, you told me a few weeks ago you were running for Henry County Council.
Yep.
And this is your first time running for political office of any kind.
It is.
This
Yep.
is an at-large seat. There's 3 seats available. They're all up for election this year. What kind of made you throw your hat in the ring, first of all? Like, was there a deciding factor? Was there something that happened? You said, I need to run for office, or have you been thinking about it for a while?
Honestly, no. I hadn't given it a whole lot of thought. I'd considered it, or kind of looking at the political landscape, but I'm not really good at self-promotion, so it was hard for me to imagine to actually run for office and think that I, have a place to be. But had a friend that approached me. It's like, hey, I think there's going to be some vacant seats come up in the county council, and I think you might be a good fit. And it was something that simple conversation with someone that, kind of saw me in that light and said, hey, I think, this is something you could be good at. And so I talked to the wife about it, and we discussed it, and said, yeah, I'll run. To me, it really is a public service opportunity.
Right.
It's a way to serve the community I live in. I mean, and I enjoy that. To me, it's a worthwhile endeavor to serve your community, and if you're not happy with your local government one way or the other, then it's only us that can change it. I don't particularly have any issue with any of the current council members or anything to that nature, but it is something that, if there's several of us that are going to run, then I'm just as good as the next guy, I believe.
Yeah. Whoever had that conversation with you got lucky, because I've had that conversation probably a couple dozen times and not had very many takers.
Well, maybe I'm just ignorant. I don't know. It's ask me in a few months, I might say, well, that
Listen,
was
my track record is very bad. If I'm rooting for you, then you should tell me to stop.
Yep. No.
That was his job for a while. That was one of Dakota's jobs.
Yeah.
He was the head of a party. His job was to recruit people to run.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, I didn't do too bad recruiting people, but it was getting them elected I did terrible at.
Well,
that's the life of a third-party chairman.
I was going to say that he was starting from behind to
You know
begin
how many
with.
times I felt jealous of Todd Hyday over the years?
Yep.
Rack up some wins.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that the more the merrier. If you can, the more choices that the citizenry has, the better, because that means that there's a more likely chance that there's someone who you feel can accurately represent your positions and your worldview and your values. If you just have if you have 3 people running for 3 seats,
Right.
then what's the point?
Right.
And
There's no
you
choice.
don't actually have a say in the matter.
Absolutely.
If you have 6 people, which we found out tonight there's 6 people, then now all of a sudden there's a competitive race. People get the chance to interview the candidates. They get the chance to sit down, listen to shows like this, and go to the chamber meetings. By the way, any other candidates who think we might be playing favorites, absolutely not. We're going to we're going to try to have every single person who's running in the May primary in here with their opponents. So, Clint, you'll be invited again. But at the time, whenever we discussed and planned this episode, you were the only candidate running for Henry County Council at Large that had not been on this show before, because it was you, Chad Malicote, and Jay Davis, and John Phillips. Those were the 4 people that I knew of that were running. Apparently, there's been 2 other people that have thrown their hats in the ring, and they will be invited as well. So,
Good.
No favorites here. We've gotten in trouble for that previously, and it took us a while to rectify it.
Hey, I truly mean it. I mean, more the merrier, because just as you said, I mean, you got 3 open slots, and you only had 3. That's not a choice, you know. I mean, there's not even a reason to have an election, essentially.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, I think when you have more people running, you have an opportunity for maybe better turnout, because there's just
Hopefully.
more information out there. And
Really just hopefully more people get actually involved, like seriously involved in doing their research and reading about it and just learning.
Right.
It also kind of forces the candidates to identify their positions and separate themselves a little bit better.
absolutely.
And then hopefully, like maybe if it's close, you might see that, oh, this person pulled some stuff and this was their position. Maybe you understand that position, that whatever they were kind of running on might be more important than you think it was to various people. So, yeah, it gives you a better perspective on what people want in a candidate, the more individualized the candidates have to be. Because, like I said, if there's a good field, then if you have 3 for 3, then they're all going like, well, I'm done. They won't do anything.
Right.
And they, it's because they don't have to. But, yeah, if you get some competitiveness.
You know, like when we had the sheriff's race going on, and the primary field was packed.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that primary episode, but
Oh, yeah.
jamming the guys in around this table was a chore.
Right.
And we had people sharing microphones, and John Sproles was the only candidate that was, saying anything different.
Right.
I mean, to just say it bluntly, he was the only one that was going against what the other guys were saying and making his individual positions known and showing that he was different.
Right.
And he made it through, and then he got elected. He's now currently our sheriff. So that's kind of the thing that has to happen whenever you've got a more crowded field. Whenever you are running against people.
Yep.
You need to make it known that you are different. You're not going to sit here and just read what the Republican Party platform is, and that is also your position. It's the job of each candidate to make it known, this is who I am, and this is why I'm different, and this is why I think that I'm the best fit. And then the impetus is on the citizenry and the voters to say, yeah, I liked that.
Right.
I identify with that guy.
Right.
And make that choice. And, I mean, the second worst thing that could happen is all 6 people just say the exact same things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you're not trying to differentiate yourself, that's not adding any information to the equation.
Right. And it honestly, as a voter, it just makes it more difficult, because then you go in there and you're like,
well, then it becomes strictly name recognition.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
people, it's like, well, I got to pick 3, and I don't really know what the office does, but I recognize a couple names, and I'll just guess on the others. And so the more interest there is in doing, shows like this and just having an opportunity to speak to people, that just adds value to the office, I think.
yeah, I agree.
So,
And so, first time running for office, you showed me all the paperwork. We talked about it, that you had. Was that surprising? Like, the sign-up process, was it more complicated than you thought? Was it less complicated?
Initially, I, of course, didn't know what to expect. I expected it to be somewhat complex, I guess, in some way. I mean, it's an official office that you're filing for. But the folks in the clerk's office were fantastic. I walked up there, explained, the office I was wanting to run for, had a few questions. They were very helpful. Said, if you have any other questions, we're always here. Here's our hours. And, it was just a little reading. It really wasn't too bad. I think if there was any stigma that, to run for office, it's not like you have to have so many signatures on a ballot or petition to be nominated or anything like that. I mean, for a local office like this,
Yeah.
anybody that wants to run, they can go up there, they file the paperwork, and they can be on the ballot. So
Yeah, our clerk's office does a really good job of trying to make things really clear. I had a lot of questions whenever I was the county chairman for the Libertarian Party. It was there's a lot of things that you have to file. There's financial reports. We weren't part of the primary process, so we had the state of Indiana has the Libertarian Party do a convention process. So you meet as a party, nominations are made, and then the members of the party at the convention vote on who will be their candidates to represent them on the ballot.
really,
So it's
wow,
it's a primary process, but it's held privately.
right,
And so there was all the paperwork that had to go into that, and our clerk's office was very knowledgeable and very helpful to me. So any person that is thinking about running for office, kicking it around, we just talked about how the more the merrier, it's better. You just heard it from Clint. It's not super difficult. Yes, it does require time, effort, but there's not much red tape keeping
Right.
you from doing it.
no,
It
not at all.
is difficult to run for office. I'm not going to say it's not. I've done campaigns. It's hard work, but the red tape is really not.
very minimal,
It's there's very few barriers to entry to running for office.
yeah, I agree with
Which
that.
I think is a good thing, and that is exactly how we want it, and that's how we want our clerk's office to be ran. It's been a while since I've been in that process,
Mhm.
so that's why I was asking you, because
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure it was kind of still
No,
the same.
it is. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, really, there's
Yeah, you were showing me some of the paperwork, and there was I think one form that threw me off. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, this is really confusing. But they have like little cheat sheets that they
Right.
put in your manila envelope, and it was explained the form.
walks you right through it.
I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's
Yep.
great. So, yeah, absolutely. Run for office and then come on this show and explain your positions.
Absolutely.
That's what we're asking for.
Yeah.
All right. Anything you want to promote real quick?
I don't think
Before
so.
we move on to the protected wetland, have you started fundraising? How can people donate to your campaign?
Do have an account at the credit union, Eastern Indiana Federal Credit Union. The account's titled Citizens to Elect Clint Weaver. If anybody would like to donate, I'd gladly accept donations. They can be made there. Hopefully we'll start getting some signs and maybe some T-shirts made up and try to get my name out there a little bit and,
There we go.
look for an opportunity to speak to people.
You're going to be on this. You're going to be sitting around this table, and then the next time that you are here, Jeremiah will be sitting here, and there will be 3 people squeezed in
I'm
on
gonna
either
say.
side of us.
Sounds
6
good.
people total. It'll be
We'll make it fit.
it'll be nuts next
Yeah.
time. Right now it's nice and quiet. It's
Who'd you-
easy.
Yep.
But next time it'll be a lot more difficult, I promise. Let's see here. I saw a story come through the Courier Times a couple days ago, and I thought this was pretty cool. Apparently there's a group called the Red Tail Land Conservancy Project, and they are acquiring wetlands across basically east central Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
this whole little area, Randolph, Henry, Delaware counties, and they're just acquiring wetlands and then making them preservation. So they're refurbishing the land, they're rehabilitating the land, and then they are opening them up to the public and making it like a conservancy district type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really cool. There were 68 acres that were purchased by this group in northern Henry County, just north of Mount Summit Lake State Park, and they bought it. I think it was like $522,000 that they
Wow.
purchased the land for, and it's a lot of forestry too, so there's a lot of upland forest through there as well as the wetland, and I'm sure that's what kind of drove the cost. Being right there next to a state park,
I'm sure. Yeah.
is like prime hunting ground.
Yeah.
So they did a big fundraiser, and they also took out loans, and they are trying to pay off that loan as quickly as possible. That group, if you're a Patreon member, then you have show notes in front of you, and you're following along. There's a clickable link to both of the stories, and it takes you right to that website. But they said that in the county, there's over 200 acres of protected nature preserve land in Henry County. And just a couple of weeks ago, Jeremiah and I were out on Westwood Lake. It was frozen over. We were walking around on it. Today it's 61 degrees outside.
Right.
But anyway, back then it was prime ice fishing weather, and I just really think it's great. I think that it's awesome for Henry County. We talk about Henry County, Newcastle all the time. What is there to do at work? Where you and I work, there are a couple of young apprentices, and they were from Noblesville.
Right.
And it was the middle winter, last winter, I think, and one of them asked me, they were like, "How old are you?" And I told him, "I'm 27. He's like, "You're close to our age, and what the hell do you do around here for fun?" I was like, it's wintertime, man. There's not much to do.
Right.
I was like, but the summertime, Mountain Summit Lake State Park, in the city of Newcastle, there's Trojan Woods. We have Westwood Lake is right out here.
Right.
This is an outdoorsman's dream place to live.
Cardinal Trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Cardinal Trail, then you have the trail south of the county on the old railroad tracks. Runs basically from Cambridge City to Greenfield.
Yeah.
And, I mean, all of that, it's amazing. I love it as a person who loves to be outdoors. You have Mountain State Park in Anderson is also right in our backyard. And there's just, you're never running out of outdoor recreation in Henry County. And we also have the state's largest county park, which would be Memorial Park.
Right.
The Veterans Memorial Park here in Henry County, and it is county-owned. There's a golf course right there. They are constantly doing stuff with it. There's beautiful trails out there. You'll just be walking along, and then all of a sudden you're in front of a monument.
Right.
And it's really cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, this group, I thought it was really neat. The Buck Creek Fin Preserve is what it's called. I had never heard before this. I don't know if you had. Have you ever heard of a groundwater fin?
I haven't. I've not heard that term. No.
So I'll pull up the
Surface water like a spring? I guess that's what I'm sort of envisioning when I hear like groundwater fin.
So fins are peat. Here's from the Google definition for you. I didn't know this before today either. Fins are peat-forming wetlands that rely on groundwater input and require thousands of years to develop and cannot be easily restored once they are destroyed. So they're a hot spot for biodiversity and are home to many rare plants, insects, and small mammals because they're easy to burrow through. So basically, you've gotten into a valley, and the groundwater is closer to the surface, and it's kind of pushing up and creating like a mound of swampy wetland area. And it's
a lot of nutrients, a lot of
Right.
groundwater, a lot of topsoil probably in the area. And
right. And obviously it's caused by when the glacier went through in the Ice Age, which totally blows my mind.
right.
I think it's crazy. That
This was used to be covered by the reason why we're flats because we had glacier
right.
crushed everything over here.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy to me where we live is like right on the line of like where it was breaking.
Right.
And that's why it's, you go to Muncie, north of Muncie, and it's just totally dead flat everywhere. And then south, you get like south of Rushville, and then all of a sudden there's
Right. Oh, it's
gigantic hills and crevasses everywhere. And we were just right on the line, and that's why there's the Blue River Valley.
Right.
And whenever it started melting and receding, and it just completely flooded this area because it had nowhere else to go except for south.
Yep.
And we were right on the edge. And it's made the topography very interesting.
Right.
It's also why, interesting fact, the storms don't get crazy around here. They hit way harder north of us and south of us. That I-70 corridor, it's always been that way. It's not just because they built I-70 right there, but it has to do with the geographic area of storms happen to just split because they're hitting a valley as it comes into Henry County,
Weekends.
and then as it gets towards the east of Henry County, the sea level starts to rise. So it's weakening and then splitting off as it hits the rise in the sea level.
I've never heard that, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, you got the highest point in Indiana, just out here in
Right.
Randolph County. I mean, it's
Yeah, that was something my Mr. Jones, my science teacher in like 7th or 8th grade.
Huh.
That's
I know. I
they
heard
hit-
that. I mean, knock on wood for him. I don't want to jinx anybody, but like Richmond, my dad grew up there, and he was always kind of told like the chances of tornado really ripping through Richmond are like slim to none, just because the topography of the area just makes it very inhospitable for a storm
right.
that could produce a tornado to like survive there. So apparently they all just live in Bondsville. That's where those storms go. But like, and you think about Richmond's got a crazy river valley, like that runs right through the middle of town. I mean, it makes the Blue River Valley look kind of shallow. Blue River Valley is kind of wide compared to it, but yeah, yeah, we do that. Especially even the snow ice lines are always like we're always just kind of in the middle. Muncie will get 6 inches of snow, and we'll get like 2, and then Rushville would get rain. It's a weird
Right.
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, I'd never heard of sedge meadows. Apparently, a sedge is like the native grass for
Okay.
this area. So that's a big thing. If you start looking into basically just managing the land, the grasslands here, the roots were much deeper, and that created better soil drainage, and all of this European grass that we use now for our lawns and stuff.
Right.
The roots are very shallow, and that's led to less favorable conditions in the soil for burrowing insects and burrowing mammals, because it's creating much more densely packed soil.
Compact clays. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, there's a big push for trying to get more native grass areas. That's like a lot of the do not mow,
Right.
signs that you see
Yeah.
along the interstate. A lot of that's that type
Wow.
of stuff. Yeah. Which is kind of, it's pretty cool. So much of that is just, it's very fascinating to me that people have even figured it out, you
Right.
know? Like,
Yeah.
the process of just knowing it is kind of crazy. But yeah, we have now 68 acres of that in northern Henry County, and it does say on their website, like, if you click on their website, it says like view trails and stuff, and they have a nice pamphlet that has all of the other protected wetlands and preserves that they have, and all of them that are open to the public. It's got maps of their trails that
Okay.
run through there, and it looks like it's very well kept up. And the Buck Creek Fen Preserve, which is now purchased by this conservancy, it is now closed to the public, and it says on their website that they're going to be doing restoration work and doing a bunch of stuff to try to get it, up to par, looking nice. And then it doesn't say necessarily on the website, but hopefully it's going to be like their other areas, and it'll be basically an extension of Mount Summit Lake State Park.
That'd be cool. I hear the conservancy and preserve. I think of like no trails. You know what I mean? Like if
Right.
it's like a true preserve. But I think they have a piece of property that they own. It's actually down by the water treatment plant.
Oh, yeah?
That little piece of ground between the water treatment plant and the next subdivision there, just to the west.
Okay. I think I know. I know
There's
what you're
a
talking
sign right there actually that has their name on it, and I think it's just listed as either I believe it's a preserve, but
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's, if they have some that's actually open to the public, I think that's great. It's obviously some of the more swampy areas that'd probably be difficult to allow public access, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. There's a picture of them. They're standing in muck boots in the preserve, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if they can even just have some viewing areas. I know out there in that part of Summit Lake, they've got the bird watching and,
Right.
gazebos and things out there.
Call Joey Cooper. He'll find out. Joey Cooper's all about taking the picture. I know there's an area, Summit Lake, that's actually the state park that's like more of a preserve because there's a county road that runs through it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're on the east side of that county road, there's like no boating. There's a lake over there. I think that's
Right.
actually where the bald eagles live. But that's an area that's like not open to the public. It's just like stay away from here and like go play over there.
Yep.
So
Yeah, the Causeway. I think they refer to that area around Causeway or Beaver Creek, Denloise.
Here we go. Number 11. I'm trying to find the one that you're talking about. That is called the Blue River Bottoms
Oh,
Preserve.
okay.
which makes sense because it's in the middle of a valley.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, it borders Blue River there.
Yeah.
It's at it.
and they're saying that is good for bird watching.
Yeah,
So there you go.
cool.
We're quietly a bird watching mecca here, I think. I can't really Summit Lake's huge
Right.
for bird watching. Like I said, and people, we've had Joey Cooper on before, who's now a township trustee around Middletown. And if you follow him on Facebook, he goes and
He's got some really cool pictures.
yeah, he does. He's
Really?
he's all
Yeah.
in on photography out around Summit Lake because he joked about he was running against Joe Wiley. And he's like, I'm really not creeping on you because Joe lives out that way. He's like, I'm not taking pictures like your house or anything because he was like rubbing about in his front yard. But yeah, Summit Lake's wildly popular.
Yeah.
It's a hard state park to get into to camp because the campground's not real big.
It never used to be like that.
No,
I-
camping just exploded. But
Yeah, COVID
Jeremiah's real big on he
blew it
thinks
up.
that Summit Lake needs another loop. It's one of the smallest state park campgrounds in the state. It's not the smallest, but it's only like 120 sites. You compare it to like, and some of these places are bigger, but like Patoka Lake's got almost 500.
Right.
Brown County's got hundreds.
400
Brown
or
County's
500.
like 2 miles long.
It's also not a very old state park.
No.
No.
No, about 85, 86.
But even I don't know what the count is for sure. Something's going on. There's all kind of sirens outside. If you're hearing that,
It's the same age as Jeremiah.
what?
Some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Prophetstown State Park is from like the 90s. It's like I think it might be the newest state park. Like, and it's got really nice campground, but it's got more. I don't know how many sites it's got. I have to look that up. But
It's got at least a couple hundred. We've
Yeah.
only recently been there ourselves, but
it's
yeah,
wicked nice.
it's. I wish
But
they
like-
would do something like that. The campground out at Summit, like so the border, like the
Prairie.
hedges and the prairie grass.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, it's
If anybody's a camping, if anybody likes camping, especially if you have an RV, it's not tent camper friendly, but Prophetstown State Park is as nice as any private campground you've ever been to in terms of the sites, but they're bigger and they're awesome. They're all landscaped and edged and packed gravel.
Yep.
And then part of it's even full hookup, and the part that's full hookup, my understanding is that used to be a Christmas tree farm, and so there's a bunch of pine trees and stuff around there. Most of it though is prairie,
Yep.
so it's the closest one to feeling a little bit like Summit Lake. Because Summit Lake I don't really think of as a super woodsy park because I grew up
No,
with
it's
like a lot of it being like that little forest. If you're familiar with Summit Lake, there's little woods right by the beach. I remember when that was like not much going on there.
right.
Provincetown very much has a feel like that. It's a very prairie.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it
That's
is.
the
It's
whole point.
grassland.
Yeah, there's a whole section. They have a bike trail, and you can see for, a mile and a half off to see the Tippecanoe River from there. So
Yeah, nice park. I wish, and I agree with as far as Summit. I've said I wish they'd add some sites. If you actually look it up, I think Summit Lake's about 2,600 acres. So, like by acreage, the lake itself's over 800 acres, but still, the property itself has a lot of real estate that's not been developed. And yeah, I wish, hands down, they would add another loop. I
Yeah.
mean,
Do
it's
they have cabins out there?
no, they used to have like these one or two like
The Ball-
rinky-dink little things. It was like a shed.
it was a Ball State project.
Yeah,
They had
and then
smart-
they, like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, they disappeared. Literally all they had to do was like probably come in with a forklift or a skid loader and
Those
just
boat-
pick it up and move it.
They're the boat rental now.
Is that what those are?
Yep. Up at the boat rental. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It was just these.
Our new state legislator is coming on next week, so maybe we can talk him into lobbying for the newest state park inn to be placed.
Yeah,
in
Jeremiah would
Center.
really like an inn. And there's a spot like, and it's, even if they could either add a loop to what they have now, and they have a kind of a natural spot to do it, although there's a nice trail. So people familiar with the park go to Trail 2. There's a spot over there you could do it. Or wouldn't be a bad idea. It's like there's a causeway that runs right to the middle of the lake. You could throw a campground on the back side of the lake pretty
yeah.
easily. Because like I know that Turkey Run, for instance, campground is not park adjacent, or it's in the park. It's a different entrance. It's like a mile or two down the road to go to Turkey Run State Park campground, and that one's huge too. So yeah, they could do something. And I think the only one I know of for sure that's smaller is Quakertown, and that's an SRA, and it's tiny.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's got 100 sites, I think, or 110 or something.
Yeah.
I like Quakertown. It's a nice.
It is tiny.
Yeah.
You think it's not. You don't know it until you like pay attention. But
But-
like I ran around it. Not a lot of running in there, but I went to the beach area, like ran through the parking lot, and it's like you think, oh, this is all big, but you don't realize that they just don't own any land very far outside of whatever you're using, because there was a tree stand 8 feet from the beach parking lot. Like that's how svelte the property line is. And then like we were just sitting there, and there's these people that are like wandering through the woods, and we're like, what are they doing? You don't do that when you're in a park, SRA or whatever. And we looked it up. We're like, oh no, they're on private property, but they were like 50 yards from the campground. Like we could see them. There's a valley behind it. So yeah, that's it. But it has a comparable size campground for being a tiny, tiny park.
I think that Whitewater is the only actual state park
Yeah,
that's by Brookville.
yeah, because Mounds is, which
Mounds
is
is-
confusing.
Yeah.
Right.
There's Mounds State Park, Anderson, Indiana. Mounds SRA, which has got a huge campground.
Yeah.
Right.
It's probably like, I don't know, 300 or 400 sites.
Wow, that many? That's
It's
bigger
a
than I even thought.
huge
There's a
loop.
bunch.
So it's got a loop.
I knew it was big.
It's just literally like got it's got an A loop, which is literally not a loop. It's a run. It's a run across a ridge, and then it kind of goes downhill either way. And they have an A loop, B loops. I think they got A through F, and each one of those is probably 40 to 60 sites, plus the ridge down the middle. And then there's a old section down the hill that's completely different. It's a half mile down the road. It's a big boating, like monster in the summer. Like we went there for Labor Day one year because
gosh, the boats on Brookville on Labor Day is
well,
insane.
Well, because we normally had some standing reservation with some friends, or we knew some people that had a big hog roast, and they'll let people camp in their backyard with campers. So we did that, and then that got canceled. Like, well, we gotta find somewhere to go, and so we found that like last minute, and it was insanity because they allow more vehicles because everybody has their boats. And so first thing in the morning, there's all these people that are kind of hungover, and their kids are in the back of the boat, hanging off the boat while they drag it down to the water. And then they all come back at 6 o'clock drunk with the kids hanging off the boat, and they're speeding around. But it's crazy. So we don't go back to Mounds SRA too much. Whitewater, I love Whitewater.
Yeah.
That's a hidden gem. It's not too far away from here.
That's
And because of the glut of campsites down there, you can always get a site of Whitewater.
yeah, that's one of our regulars too. For a weekend trip, it's not too far, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
You can be down there, and
Yeah, you don't have to be in a rush to get back because it's an easy drive back. And there's no, like, I don't know. Clint might be different than me. I hate the interstate. I hate tone on the interstate.
Yep.
And it's a super easy drive down there.
it's a good drive. Yeah.
One thing that is funny though is if you're used to seeing the mounds, the Native Indian mounds at Mounds State Park in Anderson, and then you go to Mounds SRA, kind of expecting the same thing.
Right.
Oh, no,
You're
totally
You're
different.
sorely
I
disappointed.
guess there
Yep.
is a mound
There is a
somewhere.
mound. We almost missed it. The trail goes on top of the mound, and there's just trees growing on the mound.
Like there's
and
no,
then,
there's no like
and then there's a little
preservation
sign
effort.
that's like here's the mound found by this doctor, and you're like,
Huh.
oh, okay. I'm standing on top of the mound.
It
And
is-
because
you
at-
used to like at Mount State Park. It's like a thing.
you're staying
Right.
off of the mounds. They are
Well
marked
documented.
off.
well manicured. They've got the They've got the little walkway bridge that goes into the opening of the Great Mound, but you're not. They don't allow anyone to just walk on. It's like a sacred place,
Right.
and there's
That's
literally
fair.
it's in like the woods. It's
I mean,
just
there's one
a
in the
hill in the woods, you know?
There's one in the middle of Newcastle, like
At
right next to
Baker
the high
Park,
school.
yeah.
Yeah, they just bent a road around it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, what's this? You look at it and you're like, oh,
Hmm.
yeah. That confuses a lot of people on camping websites. The Mountains SRA Mountain State Park thing.
I bet it does.
Mountain State Park's really hard to get into too. It's tiny. I've only gotten in there once.
Hmm.
I'm trying to go peak season.
I really enjoy walking through Mountain State Park. Their trails are they're incredibly kept up.
You
It's,
can get,
it's
you can get
amazing.
lost in them. You
Oh,
can just
yeah.
go meander
Just-
around. It's kind of a web, and then the ones down by the river in Trail 5.
Oh yeah, you
whatever.
want the map. You want
yeah.
a map
Really?
at Mountain State.
And I think
It's
it's
such a small
like
park. It's only like a couple hundred acres. And
yeah, but I think you could do if you do the perimeter, which is not hard to do, and you're doing like 3 different trails to do it. You can do like I think it's like 5 or 6 miles.
Really?
I think.
And that's the part that's confusing is that so many different trails intersect with the other ones. So if you're trying to stay on like I want to do a 2-mile loop, that's what you have to pay attention to.
Right.
Is like
Take a wrong turn.
like
and you're
keep
doing
it mentally like up here at the fork. I'm gonna have to go this way
Yeah.
because a lot of them aren't marked with like trail 2's this way and trail 3's this way.
Right.
But they're very clean and
Yeah.
kept up, and they're super wide. Like
You could
probably
run, yeah,
4
really
people
easy
could
to
run
ru-
abreast.
Yeah, real easy to like you could run those
yeah.
really easily. There's like yeah to do. It is a web though down by the river.
Yeah.
It's just a web of trails. It's really hard.
And
to
the
keep it
river is
straight.
super cool because it's full of freshwater mussels.
Hmm.
So like the beach is just like fresh. It's not really rocks. There's just thousands upon thousands of freshwater mussel shells
Really?
all along the shore, in with the rocks. And my son thought that it was just the craziest thing he'd ever seen in his life because he's only seen shells at the beach.
Yeah.
He's like, "There's shells here."
Yeah. Yeah, they've got a little bit of paved. They got paved trail to get back to the mounds, and after that, it is really well maintained trails. I try to go there
Yeah.
a couple times a year just
There's
to hike.
A large population of melanated squirrels, so all black squirrels
Really?
through there.
You usually have to go a little farther north to catch those.
Right.
Right.
Wabash State Park, you get a bunch up by Wabash, which is up by Blackford.
Yep.
Yeah, there's-
Warsaw, that area.
I think the only other place I've seen them is, north in Michigan City, Indiana.
Mhm.
So yeah, but yeah, there's a huge population. I say huge, but like we
Enough
saw
use
like
it.
4, you know. Which
You
is
get
pretty
around
big.
Wabash State Park's campground, and that's almost all there are. There'll be a couple, and then once in a while you'll catch them. Somebody got a picture of one that was evidently like mom and dad were different. One was black and one was a regular, or whatever, red squirrel right here. So it was half and half, split right down the middle.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So it's like upper half was black, and then it's like lower half was red brown kind of thing. So
Hmm.
that is an interesting thing when you go up there and people are like, you pay attention, you look around, you're like, why are the squirrels a different color
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. I think it's time for us to wrap up. Zach, if you want to start us off with final thoughts.
Does anybody care about the Super Bowl? Are you guys going to watch the Super Bowl at all this weekend?
I plan on going to my sister's house.
I'm going
Watch
to
it.
in-laws, and we'll probably come home. I'm more excited about the commercials
Always am.
than the game. Halftime might be interesting, but nah, you wouldn't like it's Usher and Friends, which
Right.
would just be like high school for me. which-
Usher and who?
whoever Usher invites.
Oh,
Right.
Usher and Friends.
Usher
That's
and
what you said.
Friends, yeah, whoever he.
I
gets
thought you
on
said
there.
Franz.
No.
I was like, Franz who?
Oh, that'd be funny.
Ferdinand.
just yeah,
Yeah,
just had
Friends.
an entire back of.
The
name of just
Archduke is
Friends.
back, baby.
That sounds like something a rapper might say, actually.
Yeah.
Like a history, but yeah, so I'll watch it for no other reason. That's like whatever. I haven't watched any of the lead up. I haven't cared. I didn't watch any of the Pro Bowl. I think they've ruined whatever that used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like everything's so compressed. Indianapolis is like getting ready for NBA All-Star Weekend,
Mhm.
and they just posted that they're not going to play the game on it, but they're going to do the slam dunk contest and some of the skill stuff on a fully LED court. So
What?
the court will become one big LED display.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So they're basically playing on a TV.
That's
So
crazy.
they can put like they even showed like they can if they wanted to do a path on the court for like a skills challenge, they can just make the court show the path.
Oh, wow.
And so that'll be really interesting to see, and that'll be Indianapolis is good at hosting that kind of stuff, so it'll be interesting to see how
Mhm.
Yeah.
see how that works. Other than that, people enjoy the weather while it lasts. We got like 2 more days, and it's supposed to snow on Sunday or Monday, I think. But But it's been after January, after as awful as January was, February's been really nice to us so far. It's been real good. We're like almost 10 days in, and it hasn't rained until we came here today. On the way, when I came to the studio, it started to rain, and it was 60 today. So
Yeah, it was nice.
It was nice.
No.
A little windy.
yeah, it's in that the Midwest stuff. If it wasn't for the wind.
Yeah, I was working in our garage at work today. Had a project like inside, and had the garage doors open on our shop as I was working in front of the workbench, and like we have a gravel lot that kind of butts up next to my building, and the wind was just swirling it right into the
building.
The garage base. I was like, dang it, it's such a nice day. I don't want to close these.
Yeah, it was nice. I just definitely feel like it's a little too early. Today was like the first day of being outside where it really kind of had the spring.
Yeah.
Itch.
Yeah,
It's
but
like
but we know better.
Right.
It's full spring.
We're not even halfway through
We're
February
being
yet.
tricked. Yeah, we're
We're going to have one more ice storm.
Oh yeah.
You guys, yeah, for you guys' sake, let's hope not. But yeah, we're going to get at least one, if not two, it's like nasty winter weather systems roll
Oh, yeah.
through.
I remember there was a year in high school, junior high-ish maybe. We had a snow day. We had like 12 inches of snow or something ridiculous, and a lot of wind, like the third week of March. And I don't know why, it's just always like
Usually
sat with me.
Sectionals, usually when sectionals start, it usually snows. And once in a while, we have to get to like late April, May.
Yeah.
And we've even had flurries in May.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like recently.
Yep.
So that's all I've got then.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably watch Super Bowl. I don't know. It's what everybody else does. Watch T Swift.
Only TV show that like most of the country watches. Like it's one of the few. I'm a big Bob and Tom guy, and when Tom talks about how like there's no uniformity to like there's no commonality to culture anymore because everybody's just watching. We're not even watching the same things at the same time. Like even I came in. I just watched Harry Potter. I watched them all in a week, like 2 weeks ago. And they came out years and years ago. And it's like, so the Super Bowl is one of the few things. I did hear one thing that was, talking about first world. I'll give you another first world problem that makes yours even less first world, is that they weren't sure if Taylor Swift was going to have a place to park her plane when she gets there because there's so many private jets in Vegas for the Super Bowl that by the time she got there, that there might not be anywhere for her. They might have to do like a touch and go and then go park it somewhere else.
Wow, that's crazy. And she's like known for that, isn't she? She's like real big on the private plane life.
Well, she's coming in from Tokyo.
What?
She has a concert in Japan, like on Friday, and then is flying 12 hours to get there on Saturday. So yeah, she's still on tour making just insane amounts of money.
Wow.
She's a billionaire.
Somebody pointed out she could buy Kanye and still have $700 million left because Kanye's net worth's down to like $400 million or something like that.
Yeah.
And she gives away a bunch.
He might as well just be broke, right?
Yeah. Like what are you gonna do with a couple $100 million? He lost all his money when he lost the Adidas contract.
Right.
Yeah.
That was like most of his net worth was in that contract, but
He also got divorced.
That
Don't take
doesn't help
anybody's
either.
net worth down.
Well, his craziness doesn't help him.
Yeah, I think I heard, like, with her, the Taylor Swift effect, as they're referring to it as, I forget, there was a ridiculous percentage, constantly they're trying to grow, the NFL, but just with her this year, like, something like 26%.
Oh, yeah.
Especially, like, the demographics that they're really trying to target, like, young women and, teenage
All the
girls.
Swifties.
All the Swifties.
She is literally the most financially, I'll say it, and I have no basis for this, financially influential artist like in the last 18 months or something like that. They talked about her concert tour had a quantifiable impact on the national economy because it had a significant impact on every town that she went into. And then she also quietly threw money around kind of in the towns that she was in. She donated massive amounts of money to various charities and stuff. Like she quietly would donate to like homeless shelters or animal shelters in any town that she was in. And then these people are paying thousands and thousands of dollars of tickets, and they're paying the outrageous fees on said tickets.
Wow.
And so, yeah. So, and to then have her roll into the NFL, which is the single biggest, like, sporting anything, like, entity on television right now. And she's pumping it up even more.
Oh, can you imagine the executives, like, and that whenever the Chiefs, like, won that game against Baltimore, and they're like, oh my gosh.
Just counting the money.
Yeah,
We're taking Taylor.
Yeah.
We're
You're
taking Taylor Swift to Vegas with
Yeah.
us.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonder who she breaks up with him, and then she's going to be somebody next year.
She's gonna write a killer album on
Oh,
it, though.
oh,
You know she's gonna have a killer album.
It'll be an album, and
her,
then
her
right,
Adele.
right.
They throw albums down when relationships end.
That's every one of them. Yeah.
What you got, Clint? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. Enjoyed being here, and looked forward to coming back and talking to everybody else about running for county council. And if anybody'd like to donate, I'd appreciate it. Or any other questions, I'll be around and try to figure out a better way to get myself out there publicly as time moves on a little bit. But
I
appreciate
saw
it.
we have our first political billboard up in Henry County. It's
Really?
for a circuit court judge, Circuit 3. Is that right? I don't know.
I'm
Doing
not sure.
billboards
I
for
haven't seen that one.
judges now.
Yep, there's a billboard for Henry County judge.
Who's billboard?
I can't remember. I
They did a great job.
shouldn't
on
have
it.
even brought it up because I've totally forgot.
Well,
But anyway,
Huh.
it's never too early.
no, well, again, thank you though. I appreciate it, and look forward to coming back. And
Absolutely. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
I-
We
I-
made it. And
I was wondering how long this, really you've done a good job hosting. I appreciate it because I was
Only done
really nervous about being here, and
We're nice to people because we want them to come back.
well,
Right.
that's good.
I've done
I
it
just-
probably 300 times.
Well, you guys are a well-oiled machine, that's for sure. I just there's a story. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't bring it up since I don't remember all the details. But I just remember there being a story of like Alec Baldwin, like talking about like talk show host and things back in the day, and how easy it is just to be a talk show host. And I think as the story went, he attempted it. I think on maybe NPR, and they gave him an hour, and he ended up calling his mom like 30 minutes in because it was a really difficult thing to fill up an hour or
Just fill
so.
time.
Yeah, so it's fun though.
Yeah, if you go back and listen to some of our first episodes, there's a lot of dead air, which is fine. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay, like, to think and collect your thoughts for a second, but it can't last for 15 seconds. It can't last long enough to where the people listening are going,
What happened?
Is my phone like
Right. Do I still have
did I
audio?
lose signal? Yeah.
Fix that, Zach.
Yeah.
But
And if anybody's catching this and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to catch the podcast,"
Yeah, that was
Jeremiah's on
that
the
was a good
boat.
line.
We don't, either one of us don't know how to. Well, I don't have the ability. I've never been trained on how to get the podcast out. Dakota has, but it's been years and years and years. And so we let Jeremiah have his vacation. We did not allow him to take his laptop.
Mhm.
So the podcast will be going up on Monday when he returns.
Sunday night or Monday.
Sunday night or
morning.
Monday. So you'll have 2 episodes hitting your podcast feed next week.
Next week, right? But this is available on YouTube and Facebook.
Yep.
Right now,
Yep.
today and tomorrow, and until then. So, but yeah. Final thoughts for me. My wife and son have made a tradition since the Whitetail Sweet Shop opened up again seasonally. They opened up. They shut down for the wintertime because they also operate the tree farm. So Christmas time gets very busy for them.
right.
And then afterwards, they just opened up in February because now
Really?
they're down again. And since they've opened up, Audrey's decided that that's going to be their Thursday night tradition. While I'm here, they're going to go there. And we did go last weekend, and man, they've got some really good stuff in there. Like,
I haven't been in
just
there
so
yet.
I haven't
free
been there.
shout out for them. It's really good stuff.
I have
Good.
to try. I'm like a Weenie World fanboy.
I am
now.
too. I'm a diehard Wiener World
Because
guy.
like
Come on.
I know I've said this before. We are lucky to have Weenie World because go to Indy and go pay $9 for a cone,
Right.
and you're like, I could buy my whole family like twist cones at Weenie World for this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so yeah, Weenie World's a gem.
Yeah, but I had a malt at the sweet shop last weekend, and it's been a while since I've got a malt, but I really love them. And oh god, it was nuts. It was
Good.
really good.
I've heard nothing but good things. We'll have to get down there and check it out for sure.
All right. Well, that's the episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will catch you on next week where we have State Representative Corey Criswell is coming on the show.